given the different types of audiences that there are, Raghav Asfahani says that that necessitates different types of teachers. It's not just one size fits all. And that's important because then those different types of teachers need to be interdependent upon each other so that between all of them, they reach everybody. But everybody has to know what their lane is and stay in their lane. Instead of being just this individual off by yourself doing your own thing, you actually need to be within a collegial relationship. You have people that are different from you, speaking to different spheres than you are, and they're not your rivals. They're not your competition. You should be able to talk shop with them and strategize and actually depend upon each other. So he identifies 4 different types of leaders. He says the first type is prophets, right? And prophets are kind of have this very, very special thing is that they're able to appeal to everybody. They're able to influence the masses and the elite. And obviously there's no more prophets, so we don't have to really take them into consideration. The second type of leader is the politician. And the Raghav Asfahani said that politicians, they influence what's external, meaning that they're not necessarily speaking to your soul. Maybe some of them do, but they're shaping policies, right? They're shaping policies, they're determining laws, things like that. And they have a mass appeal. They appeal to both the masses and the elite. Another type, so type number 3 overall, are the sages, right? What he calls the sages. And the sages, they don't influence people like politicians do. They don't make laws, right? They don't have things that are enforceable. Rather, they're appealing to people on the inside, their motivation. They're not necessarily speaking to the masses either. Usually they're speaking to the elite. And then the final type of leader that Raghav Asfahani talks about is the orator, right? The person who is, maybe we can think of the khatib, okay? The person who stands up and gives the khatira or the khutbah on Fridays. And this type of person, they're similar to the sage in that they influence what's internal. They don't make laws, but they are the ones with the mass appeal. Okay, they're not necessarily talking to the elite. You don't have to be a sheikh to give a good khutbah, right? You can be a motivational speaker and have enough knowledge about the deen to give a decent khutbah and to stir people and move people to what is good. And so these 4 have to depend upon each other, right? They actually need each other because the politician who's a policy expert, right? He's only dealing with laws, and those laws can be quite oppressive if he doesn't take into account or doesn't depend on orators and sages to sort of like advise him for how people are operating and how people are feeling on the inside. And if he's got a great idea that needs to be done, then he actually is going to rely on the orators and the sages to convince people on the inside. Now, orators and sages are very important because they, the orator kind of popularizes ideas. We need people that are doing that dawah, right? They're not sheikhs, they're not scholars. Like obviously, and the temptation or the hard thing for the orator is to stay in their lane. We have TikTok sheikhs, right? We have people who put on a kufi or put on a turban and they start giving fatwa on TikTok and Instagram. That's a problem, okay? But the problem is not that that person exists, it's that they left their lane, right? The person is actually extremely useful popularizing ideas, popularizing sort of wisdom and the religion, but they need to depend upon these other leaders. They need to depend upon the sage. They need to depend upon the people who have studied and who have a higher caliber of education and training than they do, right? And just the opposite, right? The sage needs the orator because the sage, might only have a handful of students in his life or her life. But if he or she has somebody who's able to spread those messages, right, in a way that people can understand, then the influence is multiplied. And so they actually depend upon each other. So if you're somebody who's just your basic Muslim, they want to do some dawah, you want to do some stuff on social media, then make sure you attach yourself to somebody who is not popular, somebody who's not popular but knows more than you and is wiser than you are. And if you're one of these people, you're probably not watching YouTube or watching this video, but if you're one of these people who is trained, a specialist, maybe let's say not necessarily a sage, but let's say like an academic, okay? You're in the ivory tower, you're in the journals and things like that. You don't have a mass appeal. Nobody is going to listen to you because you have your jargon and you have your sorts of things and nobody really reads what you write. Okay, you depend on that YouTuber. You depend on the TikTok account if you've got something that's really worth saying and very important to spread it far and wide and to influence people.